Hi, all of you wonderful scuba divers out there. Welcome to the Scuba Diving Magazine podcast, where I break down the latest scuba diving news and things that have piqued my interest over the previous week. This week on the podcast, the United States is set to become the largest artificial reef. It's actually the SS United States, which was a 302-meter long ocean liner. It's massive, and it's set to be decommissioned with plans to sink her to become an artificial reef in recreational depths, no less. So that's very exciting news for scuba divers, because we'll get to explore it when they get around to sinking her. A rare sighting of sunfish in the Red Sea around the Brothers has made the news, and it's just yet another excuse to book your next Red Sea liveaboard to see if you can find them as well. And a diver has tragically died collecting ghost gear, trying to help clean up a shipwreck. So yeah, the first news story is the enormous ocean-going liner, the SS United States, is set to become the world's largest artificial reef, with the news that Okaloosa County, some of the names out in this state are just incredible, is signing a agreement to buy the vessel with plans to sink it off the coast of Destin Fort Walton Beach. So the 302-meter long SS United States was launched in 1952 and still holds the blue ribbon for the fastest transatlantic crossing by an ocean liner. It's currently docked in Philadelphia. She was known as America's Flagship, and it was designed to be convertible into a troop ship if needed, because around the 50s they were still worried about all the Reds and whatnot. But she's capable of transporting 14,000 troops for 10,000 miles without refueling. The ship carried 4 US presidents in her time and numerous celebrities during its service life. The liner will join the USS Oriskany aircraft carrier, which is currently the world's largest artificial reef. That was sunk off Pensacola in 2006. That alone attracts 10,000 divers annually, generating approximately $3.6 million per year in direct spending. The plan is to sink the vessel upright in a depth that will make it accessible to all. Recreational divers will be able to explore the upper superstructure of the massive ship, whilst technical divers will be able to venture into deeper areas and sections. Ecologically, the artificial reef will create new habitats for marine life, and this increased fish population will then in turn attract more recreational anglers, who also contributes to the local economy through spending on equipment, boat rentals, fuels and charters. So it's good news that she's getting a good resting place, shall we say. She's not just going to be chopped up for scrap. She's going to become a new ecosystem for fish and, well, scuba divers, I guess. But yeah, 302, and when you see photos of her, she's just incredible to see. So yeah, exciting news. In the Red Sea, Damien Groves from the Scuba Dive Adventures recently embarked on an unforgettable journey aboard the Emperor Elite, following the famous 5 itinerary in the Red Sea, and was astounded by not one but 2 sightings of mola mola, or sunfish, which is a very rare visitor to Egyptian waters. So the trip started pretty much as any other trip around Ras Mohammed's. They did Thistlegorm, Janice D, but whilst they were diving on the Brother Islands, on the southern plateau, when they were heading towards the grey reef shark cleaning station, Damien spotted something rather unusual and quite large. At first he struggled to make out the shape, because sunfish just aren't normal fish shaped, yeah, as they got closer, realised that they were a pair of giant sunfish, and which is incredible. There is some footage of them. So that being amazing enough, they've already seen like dolphins and sharks and things on this one trip. They then went to Big Brother, where a white-tip shark was circling just beneath the surface as they're readying their gear. So that was pretty cool. They're excited to see that. They went down. They dived the shipwreck, the Numidia. Beautiful visibility apparently, and they managed to explore a lot of that. And then, just as the group was finishing their dive, Damien spotted the same sunfish now hovering at another cleaning station. Sunfish are huge. They're as I said, a very peculiar, like disc-shaped body, but very vertical, and their fins just come like straight up and straight down. So very unusual fish. Someone estimated that they weighed about 500 kilograms each, and their size and proximity just dwarfing everything around them, because it's really hard to get a perspective because they're such a weird shape. You see photos of them and you can't quite tell like scale, because it's hard to gauge with something really unusual shape. But yeah, very cool and nice to see. Nice to see that. I think they made the local news in Hurghada, which is pretty cool. They're excited to have these fish in their waters, and hopefully it's going to help with the tourism industry and get more people diving in the Red Sea. An update from a pair of divers who passed not that long ago. 2 UK-based Polish rebreather divers who died in Malta following a wreck diving incident on the 6th of July. Now, circumstances of the death of one of them, Krzysztof Bielecki, has been called into question with the suspension of a diving and hyperbaric medicine consultant at Mater Dei Hospital. So, Krzysztof was 48, was the founder of the London-based Diving Explorers, the UK's largest Polish expat diving club, and he had been trying to help out a fellow member, a 45-year-old Dominik Dubaj, who had gotten into difficulties whilst diving the 65-meter deep Polynesian off Malta's easternmost point. Both men subsequently had to make rapid ascents and missed safety stops in a fatal incident that was subsequently reported on DiverNet. Now it has been reported that the unnamed consultant who had decided to go home from the hospital's hyperbaric unit and had left only a junior trainee to monitor their recovery. The allegation is carried by the Times of Malta, which reports that Malta's health ministry has confirmed the consultant's suspension pending the outcome of a magisterial inquiry into Bielecki's death. The 2 divers had been picked up from their charter boat by an Armed Forces of Malta rescue vessel, brought ashore and then transferred by ambulance to Mater Dei near the capital Valletta. Dubaj had died there shortly after arrival. Bielecki had been reported to have been suffering from decompression illness, but was, quote, fully conscious and alert on entering the hyperbaric chamber for treatment. To the extent that he was said to have given a thumbs up sign to a visiting dive center employee that afternoon. So, yeah, fully conscious and alert, checks out. He had been thought to have been responding well to treatment and to be on his way to recovery, but at 10 minutes past 7 that evening, he was suddenly pronounced dead. Bielecki's death was said to be the first involving a fully conscious diver to have occurred at the hyperbaric unit since 1985, and the long-ago incident had occurred whilst the chamber facilities were still under development. Malta's Professional Diving Schools Association, or the PDSA, has reported to have called on the Tourism Ministry for an internal investigation into what happened at the unit in an effort to reassure the wider diving community. According to the Times of Malta, the diving and hyperbaric consultants hold diving medicine degrees from South Africa and the United Kingdom and acts as a diving incident expert witness. So some definite red flags coming up in this investigation. We'll obviously report more as we find it. But yeah, it just, why would a consultant, you've got a diver who's clearly needs like immediate care. He appears to be in like, he's conscious, he's alert, and then you know what, I'll see you in the morning. That doesn't add up. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, they've obviously been dismissed, but yeah, we'll see what the courts have to say about that. On the morning of the 11th of September, a solo diver reportedly went on a mission to remove a tangle-threatening line from a shipwreck and ended with his death and the sinking of a rescue boat in challenging water conditions. The body of 72-year-old Patrick Kelly from Winthrop Harbor, Illinois, was recovered from the 36-meter deep shipwreck of the steamship Wisconsin in Lake Michigan on the morning of the 11th of September. The scuba diver had been reported missing by his wife the previous morning after he had failed to return to their boat by 11:30 a.m. as expected. The iron-hulled wreck was built in 1881 and sunk in 1929 and lies 10 kilometers off the southwest coast of the lake near the Illinois-Wisconsin border at Pleasant Prairie. A search and rescue operation was launched in the vicinity of the shipwreck, involving the U.S. Coast Guard, Kenosha County Sheriff's Office, and Pleasant Prairie Police, and the fire department crews as well, using sonar equipment and several ROVs to try and locate the missing diver. By around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, adverse weather conditions on the lake meant that it was now regarded as a search and recovery operation and had to be suspended until the following day. Earlier on in the afternoon, around 2:30, the Kenosha County Fire and Rescue Association's dive rescue boat had started taking on water because of the adverse weather conditions, which forced to send out its own distress signal. Other boats responded, and the 8 crew were rescued along with most of their equipment before the vessel sank in a depth of around 20 meters, about 3 kilometers from the Wisconsin wreck site. The association said it would be working with the State Department of Natural Resources to retrieve its own boat. Relatives of Kelly told the press that he had been an experienced diver who had dived the Wisconsin many times before and considered himself, quote, a caretaker of the wreck. He had said that he had planned to retrieve the line for fear that it might have endangered other divers, but it appears that it may have done just that. So yeah, if you are going out collecting ghost gear, just remember it is incredibly dangerous. The ghost gear itself is specifically made to catch things and be like invisible in the water. So yeah, just be incredibly careful, and diving by yourself, you need so many redundancies that it's really never recommended. So yeah, just get another diver in the water just so that if something should happen, yeah, at least they're there then and there to rescue you, basically. I don't think I'd ever go in the water with the intention of collecting ghost gear just by myself. On some nicer news, the 33rd AIDA Depth World Championship in Corsica has concluded with a serial record breaker. Alexi Mov was able to better a previous dive depth of his own. The breakthrough came in the men's constant weight bifins event on the 4th day of the competition, beset by strong winds, swells, and a harsh thermocline. The event had been rescheduled by 24 hours to the 10th of September because of the difficult conditions for competitors, but the Russian freediver, competing as a, quote, individual neutral athlete, descended to 125 meters, which was 2 meters deeper than he had managed at the same competition in Cyprus the previous year. The entire dive took 4 minutes and 23 seconds. In constant weight bifins, the diver descends and ascends unassisted by sleds or propulsion devices, only using 2 fins, as the bifin suggests, and is reckoned to provide more control and stability than with using a monofin, but also requires greater efforts. In recent years, Molchanov has usually found himself competing with Arnaud Jarald as his only close rival in constant weight bifins. So with the French freediver absent this year, he could have taken it easily and still taken a championship gold medal, but decided to break his own record. The achievement came 3 days after he had blacked out at 2 meters from the surface, on the point of equalizing his 100-meter constant weight no fins world record, which further goes to show just how dangerous freediving can be with shallow water blackouts, and why it's so important to have trained divers around you to help you back to the surface safely should something like this happen. But the competition wrapped up on the 15th of September with 2 continental and 36 national records having set by competitors during the week. An overall category rewards those freedivers deemed to have excelled across the free immersion, constant weight, all the different disciplines, and this resulted in Croatian Peter Kluvar being named men's overall champion, while Mariana Giuseppe from France competing as an individual individual international athlete, took the women's title for the 3rd consecutive year. Nothing as far as new dive equipment, I don't think. But that's kind of understandable this time of year. We're well into the diving season. We're actually coming to the end of it. So yeah, they're probably going to hold out until like DEMA to announce anything new. But yeah, jumping into some R-Smart questions. At a Fruto 63, there are different types of torches. Correct. How about video on the different places we can carry them? Well, there's head torches. You can get some that mount to your head. Usually, if you're diving in overhead environments and you dive with a helmet, you can get, or you just make some mounts to mount them to your head. There was a teeny tiny torch once years ago. I don't know how popular it was, but it was designed to fit onto your actual mask strap itself. That was kind of cool, but it just meant that you blinded your buddy every time that you look at them. Then really it's down to your hand. You get handheld torches. There are a few different ways. There is just the standard hold it in your hand. It's a torch. You get lantern grips, which you don't see that many anymore, where you hold onto the handle and then the torch is underneath your hand, a bit like an old-fashioned lantern. Don't see too many of them anymore. Pistol grips, again, don't see too many of them anymore. And yeah, they work. They're pretty comfortable and pretty intuitive. The most common that we're seeing nowadays is divers moving more to a Goodman handle, which is where you hold onto the handle and that holds the torch on the back of your hand. So that's, again, quite intuitive because you can point it around, but it also means that you can use your hands to a certain degree. And a lot of torches are going in that kind of direction. You also get photo video lights, obviously, which mount onto arms of a tray. But yeah, for actual recreational and technical diving, they're moving on to either just a standard handheld torch or some kind of Goodman handle, either a solid Goodman handle with a rigid structure or a fabric one that just holds the torch on the back of your hand, basically. But that's kind of it. Adam Shuttleworth 9161. I've had my dry suit for 7 or 8 months now, and the one cuff seal has become slightly too loose and letting a small amount of water. I remember seeing some kind of wristbands to wear underneath to help create the seal. Is it worth doing, or do I pay for the size to be altered? No signs of damage to the cuff. Thanks for any advice. Yes, latex cuff seals do stretch over time, and that's why you recommend, because you can cut them to cut the edge to make it a little bit larger, because they come in stock sizes, and human wrists don't come in stock sizes. So you get the one that's the closest, and then you can trim it to size to make it the most comfortable, so it's not cutting off blood flow to your hand. However, latex stretches over time, so when they're brand new, they're very tight, or they should be very tight, and then they loosen. We usually recommend you stretch it over a cylinder. If it's a neck seal, you stretch it over a 12-liter cylinder. If it's a cuff seal, over a pony or something, is usually enough. Just because it does loosen. And then if you've already just trimmed it and then it loosens, then it's going to be too loose. But some divers, which it might be Adam's issue, is the kind of, if you think about the tendons in your wrist, at certain times if you tense up your hand, you can create these valleys or gullies in your hand or in your wrist. So the latex doesn't always create a seal when you're doing that. So the wristbands that you're thinking about are called BioSeal, which is a very weird material. It's very loose and squidgy, and they make it for either cuffs or necks. And you stretch it over, you put it on your wrist, and then the seal goes over the top, and it just fills in the gaps in your wrist basically, and just creates a more effective seal. It's not cheap. They are pretty pricey. I think they're about 60 quid for a pair of wrist seals, but they are useful. So it might be worth just getting a set, because that will help with that issue. But ultimately, yeah, I'd be thinking about replacing that cuff seal. Get the dive sensor to measure your wrists. Have a look at them as well to see if it is those gullies. If it is your tendons, then yeah, BioSeal really is the best way to go, because you don't want to go too tight, because then yeah, you just lose all the feeling in your hand as blood flow stops. So yeah, BioSeal, but have a chat with your local dive centre, get them to have a look at your wrists, measure them up, make sure that you've got the right size cuff seals, and maybe replace it if you need to. Johnny Rain 1968. I have a question regarding. I have a question. Having recently returned from a dive holiday where I became extremely unwell, I'm sorry to hear that, with a serious stomach bug, I ended up in hospital for a few days. Could you please let me know what's the best way to sterilize my regulator and mask to ensure that there are no germs left, and in case that's where I pick them up, the infection, I want to make sure that what I use is safe for the equipment. Yeah, I mean the best bet is to ask your manufacturer. They'll have specific recommendations for disinfectants. I know a lot of divers use steramine tablets for like rebreather parts. I know some divers use Dettol a fair amount, and that's quite bitter. So you want to make sure that you wash it out completely. But yeah, you want a non like bleach or chlorinated disinfectants. But yeah, the manufacturer is the best to call, because they'll have specific ones that they use, or because they can be fairly like localized. You can't get some things in all corners of the world. Have a chat with like your local dive clubs or schools. Probably better, because they'll be able to, or they should be using some kind of disinfectant on their school equipment. Of course, they don't want to use anything that will degrade their gear. See what they use and see where they get hold of it. But yeah, steramine tablets. They're pretty popular because you can control the doses with how much of the tablet you put in, basically, and yeah, Dettol for a lot of like wetsuits and stuff. But yeah, your regulators, yeah, some kind of disinfectant. But yeah, have a chat with the manufacturer. They'll be the best to recommend. Adventures with Shapir Moses. The Swift transmitter, can it connect to two computers? Yeah. Most transmitters, it's not a like two-way link talking to one another. It's not a matter of, oh, well, once I'm paired with one computer, that's all I'll ever talk to. Transmitters are typically beacons. So as soon as they receive pressure, then they just start broadcasting this pressure on certain frequencies, basically. And then on the dive computer side, if it's like a shearwater computer connecting to a Swift transmitter in particular, you type in the serial number of that transmitter, and then the dive computer will hear its broadcasts. It'll broadcast its like serial number in the code when it's broadcasting. It will hear that, go, yes, I need to listen to this, and then relay that information to you. So if you just input the same serial number into multiple computers, they'll both be listening for it. Basically, it's not quite as if you're diving multiple computers. Then yeah, it's perfect because the range is usually fine for that. If it's for like trying to monitor your child or your buddy, at least, on your computer, the range of transmitters isn't usually that good. You do get some transmitters. The Garmin ones are pretty. I think they're pretty much the best at the moment. But most transmitters, it's usually about 1 or 2 meters. It's really not that far, so you'd have to be side by side with them to be able to check their cylinder pressure. But yeah, if it's just using a backup dive computer and you want them both to connect to the transmitter, yeah, that's perfectly fine. My shearwater computers, they both use the same transmitter. It's rare that I use them together, but yeah, you just type in that serial number and it works fine. The same for a semi-permanent pairing one. If you have both computers ready and searching for a pairing signal when you pressurize the transmitter, yeah, they'll both pair at the same time and they'll both listen to that same transmitter. So yes, you can connect one transmitter to 2 computers should you ever need to. Lauren Wong, 1977, says, what kind of hose would I want for an Aqualung transmitter? Any high pressure hose. High pressure hoses is the closest thing to universal that we have in the dive industry. They're all 7/16 inch UNF on both the male and female end of the hose. So yeah, whatever you want, whatever length you want within reason, and whatever like style of high pressure hose, they're all the same fitting. So it will connect to your first stage, it will connect to the transmitter. The only thing is that, yeah, remember to get a swivel pin or a high pressure spool, I think they're called in some areas. There are lots of different names for them. I call them swivels. But yeah, that needs to go between the transmitter and the hose, otherwise it's just going to leak gas everywhere. But yeah, they're a relatively universal size. I prefer the ones with flanges. They're kind of like the disc in the middle, just so it sits in the middle. It's one of those things, it's best to be done in a dive center, because I've had one gauge, I think it was a student's SPG, and for whatever reason it was leaking, so we had to swap out the swivel pin. I can't remember why, but yeah, we were actually at a dive center and we kept swapping them over, but they were all too long and they didn't sit between the two. You couldn't like nip it up properly. And yeah, we had great fun. Eventually we found one with a flange, which is quite short, and yeah, it sat between them, and like, great, let's go diving. But yeah, you definitely need a high pressure swivel, and yeah, any high pressure hose should work fine. And finally, does the Sunto Ocean pair with my existing tank sender? That's from Peter Bullen 3347. Maybe. It depends what your existing transmitter is. Sunto make 2 transmitters. They make I think they just called it the Sunto transmitter. That was the original. That works with like their D series, like the D4i, the D6i, and the D10 and whatnot. When they brought out the Eon range, the Eon Steel and the Eon Core, they produced the Sunto Tank Pod, and that will be written on the housing of the transmitter itself. It's like laser etched into it. The Ocean talks to tank pods, but doesn't talk to the basic transmitter, if that makes sense. So it's a matter of, probably, it just depends what your existing tank transmitter is. I don't think it talks to any other brands. There are some, which is why it's kind of complicated. Like, you compare a shearwater computer with a Aqualung transmitter, because the original shearwater transmitters were made by a company called Pelagic, who was originally created by Oceanic as a brand, but then Pelagic was bought by Apex Aqualung, who then made them under the Aqualung branding. So yeah, you can kind of mix and match some transmitters, but not all. With the Sunto Ocean, no, the Sunto Tank Pod, that's about it. But yes, you might be able to continue using it if you had an existing Sunto Tank Pod. And that's it for this week, because my voice is failing. I'm still getting over a cold, and I'm trying to rest my voice as much as possible. But yeah, All links to the articles that I've been talking about are going to be down in the description. Any comments, questions, queries, corrections, or whatever, head over to YouTube and pop them down in the comment section. Thank you very much for listening, everybody. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And of course, safe diving.